Maybe you know two or more languages really well. Maybe you've tried to learn another language, even if you weren't successful. So, are you bilingual? In America, we have many monolingual English speakers, but in the majority of the world, it's normal to know and use two or more languages. For researchers of multilingualism, this means we're often making comparisons between bilinguals and monolinguals, even though monolingualism really isn't very common on a global scale. But to really understand the consequences of bilingualism, or monolingualism, or language learning, or any other multilingual situation, we first need to establish what it means to be bilingual. And even now, us researchers can't agree. People from many fields are interested in bilingualism, including linguists, educators, psychologists, speech language pathologists, policymakers, and anthropologists. These interests in bilingualism might be broad to include anyone who knows multiple languages, or narrow to describe a specific population, such as people who know Finnish and Japanese, or people who spoke Quechua at home but Spanish at school. Some researchers set criteria for their bilingual participants to specify how and where a language is used, such as requiring that participants spoke Thai before age 5 or used American Sign Language more than 50% of the time as a child. However, these linguistic situations are even more complex than simple descriptions. This leaves researchers assessing what their participants have in common rather than exploring their participants' diversity of experience where the label bilingual might not quite fit. Consider someone who's learning a new language as an adult. Can they ever be bilingual? And if so, when do they switch from a learner to a bilingual? Language knowledge is also dynamic and can weaken or decline over time, even for someone's first language. Where would that type of person fit in bilingualism research? When we searched the academic literature, we found that researchers often talk about their bilingual participants in terms of proficiency levels and where and when the participants learned a language. We saw that the label bilingual is used in many different ways to describe language experience. But is this how bilinguals would describe themselves? When I tell a stranger that I study bilingualism, they almost always share their own language experience with me unprompted. So, my advisor Scott Jarvis and I decided to approach bilingualism from this angle. We asked participants about their language experience. Our only criteria was that our participants were adults who knew English and self identified as bilingual. We collected data from 27 participants who filled out a survey to help us understand their language backgrounds. Our participants knew between 2 and 6 languages, representing 30 unique languages. And here's some of what they said. Their stories revealed complex dynamics between language, culture, and identity. We found that most of our participants described their language backgrounds by saying why they learned a language, where they use it, and why they use one language over another in certain contexts. And when we collected data using standard language background surveys, our bilingual participants surprised us with information about additional languages they knew when, at the end, we asked them to give unstructured free responses. So, where does this leave us? For language researchers, we need to rethink what bilingualism means to us. We need to move away from asking, are you bilingual, and towards asking, what is your language experience? This means asking questions about language background beyond whatever baseline criteria we have for their participation, and ideally providing some opportunity for participants to use their own words to explain their experience. If we plan to compare bilinguals and monolinguals, we should stop and reflect on whether that comparison is necessary or helpful for answering our research questions. If we classify a participant as monolingual, we need to thoroughly assess their language background to make sure they don't have other language experience that could lead to unexpected results. And for non-linguists, the next time you see an article about whether bilingualism is good or bad on social media, don't be too quick to believe everything you read. After all, we're still figuring out who counts as bilingual. But are you bilingual? If you're asking yourself that question, the answer is probably yes. Thank you very much.